Well, I've got my Toronto FC football jersey, my soccer jersey on to say Happy Canada Day this week. We celebrated Canada Day on July 1st, and to all my American friends, happy 4th of July for you guys this week as well. In 2020, they were on the Wednesdays and Saturday, respectively. And let's face it, we are incredibly blessed to live where and when we do. It is a genuine blessing to be a Canadian, to be an American. There are many things I would change about my country. And Americans, there are many things I would change about your country too. But the bottom line is this: we are blessed. And yet this Canada Day, I had an awful time. It was not a good Canada Day for us here at our house. We had trouble around the house. We had issues and difficulties. So overwhelming were some of the problems we faced. At one point, the girls and I said to them, girls, I gotta do something. I gotta do something to get my mind off these things. Let's go for a bike ride. We hopped on our bikes. We biked over to a couple friends' house. We kept our distance so that we didn't spread any disease, because right now we're in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis. But we went over, we dropped something off that we had to deliver. We said hello, and then we hopped on the bikes and rode back. Round trip, about 20 kilometers. I needed to get away, because even though it was Canada Day, even though I am blessed, it was a hard, hard day. And as I reflect on that reality, I think there is something fitting about that. Because as blessed as I am to be a Canadian, as blessed as I am by all the things God has shown me in this world, the beautiful landscapes, the place I live, the people I live with, this world is not my home. For the director of music with stringed instruments of David, hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe. I long to dwell in your tent forever, and take refuge in the shelter of your wings. For you, God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Increase the days of the king's life, his years for many generations. May he be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Then I will ever sing the praises of your name and fulfill my vows day after day. So the truth of the matter is, we're not meant to feel at home in this world. We're not. Our longings don't always take us where we ought to go. They sometimes mislead us. Our hearts yearn for things they shouldn't have. They yearn for things that ultimately will disappoint us. Psalm 61 is very helpful in refocusing, recalibrating the longings of our hearts. First off, I want to point out that the things of this world were never meant to satisfy us. They cannot satisfy us. And a turmoil of our heart is inevitable in a sin-saturated world. If your heart aches and yearns and longs, that is the product of living in this world. To demonstrate this, or to illustrate the point, think about every relationship you have. Every relationship you have. It's a temporary relationship. Even the best of our relationships, a relationship with a loving father, a relationship with a devoted spouse, a good friend. Every single relationship you have will one day end. Death separates us all. I think it is well worth asking, are the troubles and hardships I'm facing today, are some of the conflicts and difficulties that I'm walking through right now, are they the product of me longing for things that are unworthy of my heart's desire? Have I put my hope in things that cannot satisfy me? I know personally that happens all the time. My expectations for my kids, my expectations for my wife, my expectations for my friends or my career, my home, my work, all of these things, when my heart's longing, when my desires are misaligned with the realities of this world, I suffer. God is calling me to see clearly what really satisfies. And He's calling me to repent, to turn my back on those things that cannot satisfy. Good as they may be in and of themselves, when I love them in a way that is not appropriate, when I love them beyond what they are able to bear, they will disappoint me. I think entertainment is one of the greatest false loves of our day. It is good to enjoy life, and in fact, it is a gift from God to play well. But when play becomes our hope, work loses its joy, and play becomes an idol which will never answer your prayers, an idol which cannot save you. The truth is, this turmoil we feel, this ache in our hearts, this is an inevitable byproduct of living in a sin-saturated world. And therefore, any attitude, any strategy that sets out to find satisfaction here and now in this life, those attitudes, those strategies are ultimately doomed to failure because nothing lasts. Now, that is an extremely pessimistic view. At least it could be if we took it to the wrong conclusion. But Christians aren't called to be pessimists. Christians aren't called to grit our teeth and endure this world, hoping that maybe there's a better world to come, hoping that after we die we'll finally be happy. That's not what we're called to at all. And that's why the psalmist in Psalm 61 talks about the longing of his heart. He longs to dwell in God's tent forever. Psalm 61 wants to adjust our longings. It wants to recalibrate our heart's desires. You see, if we chase happiness, if we chase a sense of home and belonging here in this life, we will ultimately be disappointed. But if our hope is in God and we chase after Him, we will find both satisfaction and joy. We are traveling homeward. We are, as the New Testament puts it, pilgrims. We are foreigners and exiles. We are on our way home. And so we pitch our tents as we journey with Jesus homeward. And if our desire is in Him, if our happiness rests in Him, then we can be at peace no matter where we pitch our tent and no matter what passes by our camp. It's not a place. It's not a thing. It's not a possession or a circumstance that our heart is really longing for. David genuinely describes what his heart's cry is in the psalm. I have no reason to doubt that David genuinely longed for the Lord. But oftentimes we are not nearly as honest with ourselves as David was. Sometimes we need Psalm 61 to shake us awake, to call to light the real desires that are stirring within us. Because we don't long for a situation. It's not a job opening that will finally make us happy. It's not a possession that will finally bring us satisfaction. It's not even another friendship, the perfect spouse. None of those things can satisfy. What we long for is God, who made us for Himself. Think about it. Even our times of solitude. Have you ever experienced a time of solitude that just soothed your soul? You were alone, and it was exactly where you needed to be. Even in our solitude, God is present with us. Our solitude is a gift from Him. I think it's at this point that some real objections and some important objections are made. If we are longing for some other place, a place where Jesus is present with us, if, even as it sounds like the psalmist is indicating, our longing is for a place with God forever, won't that make us hate this world? Won't that make us antagonistic against the people and places and the things of this world? After all, if what we're longing for cannot be satisfied fully and finally here, why bother with here and now? Why not end it all and go to be with the one who can satisfy us? Well, the simple answer to that question is because that's not what God has in store for us. He has a purpose for His followers here on earth. Jesus left His followers behind as witnesses in the world. When the time is right, He will come for us. When the time is right, we will go and be with Him. But God's plan and purpose is not to shortcut the futility of this world. It is to help us live well here and now. God gives us the grace to find joy in a perishing world. He has not left us naked and exposed to the wilderness. He has given us a tent to dwell in while we are here. And He has given us genuine happiness, genuine blessing here and now. Listen to how Peter describes it in 1 Peter chapter 1, starting in verse 17. It is precisely because we know that better things are coming that we ought to enjoy the good things we have here and now, knowing that we are free to do it. We are free to have genuine, enjoyable work and play here in this world, because our work and our play is done to the glory of God, and it is purchased and paid for by the blood of Christ. Our labor is no longer to earn a place. It is to bring pleasure to the one who has purchased us for Himself. And that makes all the difference in the world. The reason the psalmist, the reason David longed for the dwelling of the Lord, longed to be in His tent, was because he knew who his Redeemer was. Listen to the words that he uses to finish the psalm off. Increase the days of the king's life, his years for many generations. May he be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Then I will ever sing praise in your name and fulfill my vows day after day. For David, there was an intimate and inseparable connection between what God had done and his ability to live with joy in the here and now. And so, we should be great citizens because we have been greatly loved. We ought to be diligent workers because we have been set free to work with joy because of Jesus. We ought to be good neighbors because genuine, heartfelt compassion has been shown to us by our Master. And we ought to be community leaders because we know what it means to be called together into one fellowship. Christian, you have a responsibility to live well in this world, even though you are a foreigner, even though you are a stranger, even though you are waiting and longing for a city whose builder and maker is God, especially because you are waiting for a city whose builder and maker is God. We live well today because we know there is a reward coming tomorrow. We live well today because the terror of our future is completely removed. The guilt of our past is completely paid for, dealt with. We live today free and full of joy because we know what is coming just beyond the horizon. So we sing with the psalmist our longing for God. We remember and allow the psalm to recalibrate the cry of our heart, the yearning of our soul. We remember the one for whom we long. And as we see Jesus lifted up, the one who gave himself for us, how can we not be moved by that thought? If you don't know what it means to have someone love you, to ransom you, to seek and to save the lost, if you don't know that love, pick up the Gospel of Mark today. Pick up the Gospel of John today. Pick up the story of Jesus and let God teach you how deep his love runs. And you will be able to say with David, how you long to dwell in his house forever. And if you call on him as Father who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, conduct yourselves with fear through the time of your exile, knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for your sake,